important tonight. The busy summer travel season is almost in full swing, but could there be more turbulence for air travelers?
WestJet currently has a retention and attraction problem with its pilots.
WestJet pilots plan to hold an informational picket across the country come Monday, just as Pearson Airport is set to kick off its summer travel season. And
I've been a Gordon Lightfoot fan all my life. He touched on things that I wanted to hear about, and a lot of it was Indigenous culture and his respect for it.
honoring an icon, thousands gather to pay their respects to Gordon Lightfoot, reflecting on his legacy, his lyrics, and everlasting mark on the Canadian music scene.
Like, you know, it's just really bad. Like, I can't believe it. Like, 3-0 is just like, oof. That's a very, very tough time to get back.
I'm devastated. It's heartbreaking, honestly.
On the brink, Toronto Maple Leafs lose in overtime. The Buds now just one game away from elimination from the playoffs.
This is CBC Late Night News.
We're so glad you're with us. We'll get to those stories in a moment. But first, it was an emotional day for thousands of police officers and their families. 5 more names were added to the police memorial wall, all officers killed in the line of duty. As Clara Pasica shows us, among the tributes and memories being shared were pledges of better protection for those in uniform.
In the service of the citizens of Ontario.
Thousands of police officers lined up in rows around the police memorial at Queen's Park. This year, the names of 5 police officers were added to the honor roll. Veteran officer Andrew Hong died last September in what was described as an unprovoked and deadly ambush during his lunch break at a coffee shop in Mississauga. He left behind a wife and 2 children. 1 month later, Constable Devin Northrup and Constable Morgan Russell of South Simcoe were both killed while responding to a disturbance call in Innisfil. Provincial Constable Jagorsh Pirchala of Haldimand OPP, out on his own for the first time after passing his probation period, was shot and killed in December while checking up on a car in a ditch. Investigators say he too was ambushed. And Constable Vicky Lynn Wilson of Durham, who died in 1992. Bringing the total number of officers killed in the line of duty and added to the wall to 277.
Every family member without fail, really feels the love and support of the police officers and coming together. It's still very difficult.
Heather Pham, whose husband OPP Constable Vu Pham was killed more than a decade ago, says events like this mean so much.
It's important to hold space at an event like this for those of us who continue to remember our loved ones. It's also important to continue to hold memorial events for the new families that continue to join us, unfortunately, and for us to be there to be able to support and offer whatever we can, having traveled that road before.
Some have come to the event advocating for changes to the justice system, given some of the circumstances around which some of these fallen officers have died.
Conservatives are calling for a reversal of the Trudeau catch and release policy and to bring in jail not bail for repeat violent offenders. Let us make the commitment.
We'll have some news to say about that in the very, very short term. And it will focus on repeat violent offenders, those who we need to really be focused on, and not only through through the recalibration of laws, but equally providing some supports to the law enforcement community.
Attendees say remembering the fallen officers must continue alongside pushing for reforms. Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
Tributes also flowing in today in memory of Canadian music giant Gordon Lightfoot. In his hometown of Orillia, thousands came together to reflect on what his music means to them. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson takes us there.
I feel really special to be able to be here.
Thousands of mourners, many from out of town, lined up in the rain to view Gordon Lightfoot's casket and pay their respects to the man.
I've just grown up listening to Gordon Lightfoot, my mom, my grandfather. It's a multi-generational part of Canadian identity.
Inside St. Paul's United Church, where Lightfoot once sang as a choir boy, his family and closest friends took it all in.
It means a lot to the family, it means a lot to me personally. I'm the guy who started with Gord 55 years ago and stuck with him. There's a lot of great songwriters out there. I don't think any are better than Gordon.
A common thread emerging of a man of great loyalty and integrity. Pam Carter runs the Mariposa Folk Festival. It was important to Lightfoot's early career in the 60s, and he never forgot.
When Mariposa returned to Aurelia in 2000, Gord was the headliner, and that assured us that tickets would sell.
Gord opened the eyes of Canadians and Americans about Indigenous people.
With kisses for a king and coffee on a silver tray.
Lightfoot was a proud son of Aurelia. The beauty of its nature made its way into many of his songs. Today, poetry and flowers flanked Gordon Lightfoot's 2 statues in town. And a church bell rang 30 times, 29 for the lost crew of the Edmund Fitzgerald, and one last time for its honorary crew member. Gordon Lightfoot's funeral will take place on Monday. It'll be a private affair for his family, and he is to be buried next to his parents right here in Aurelia. A concert celebration of life is being planned for a later date. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Aurelia, Ontario.
And in Toronto, fans lining up inside Massey Hall to pay their respects and sign a book of condolence that was made available to the public today. Lightfoot played at that venue often throughout his career that spanned an impressive 6 decades. Well, if you thought there was pressure tonight for the Toronto Maple Leafs, just wait until Wednesday. The Buds losing tonight in overtime. Watching it all for us among the fans at Maple Leaf Square was Greg Ross. Hey, Greg.
Coming into the night, many fans here in Maple Leaf Square were calling this a must-win game for the Leafs. And you could feel the tension here as fans were watching the game. And it became even more nerve-wracking when Leafs starting goaltender Ilya Samsonov was injured in the second period when he was crashed into by Leafs defenseman Luke Schenn. Samsonov would have to leave the game and was replaced by Leafs backup goaltender Joseph Woll. But despite that, the Leafs still managed to keep pace with the Panthers. In fact, they would force overtime with the game tied at 2, but just over 3 minutes into that extra frame, Sam Reinhart would end it with a wraparound goal for the Panthers, giving them a 3-2 victory and a commanding 3-0 lead in this series. A devastating blow for the thousands of Leaf fans gathered here in Maple Leaf Square to watch.
We fought this hard to get past Tampa, blew 2 games at home, go down to Florida, go to overtime, and then lose it in overtime. It's heartbreaking.
If we broke the 19-year curse, so I mean, if we broke that, I mean, and nothing's impossible if you think about it.
It's not looking too good, but there's always a chance. So as a Leafs fan, it's our first time in the second round since 2004. So you got to believe, man. Leafs in 7. Leafs in 7. Let's go.
Only 4 teams in the history of the NHL have ever come back after trailing 3-0 in a playoff series, and the Leafs are one of those teams. In fact, they were the first to do it. Way back in 1942, they trailed 3-0 against the Detroit Red Wings in the Stanley Cup final and came back to win 4 straight games to take the cup that year. The Leafs will need to do that against the Panthers this year, and it starts with Game 4 on Wednesday night in Sunrise, Florida. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Big pressure, high hopes. Okay, tomorrow, Pearson Airport plans to kick off its summer travel season, touting improvements made to smooth out the passenger experience. At the same time, pilots from WestJet plan to hold an informational picket. They've been demanding better pay and could take job action later this month. Meg Roberts is near the airport tonight.
WestJet pilots and the airlines have 9 days to work out a contract. That's before pilots go on strike. Tomorrow at Pearson Airport, pilots will be protesting ahead of what could be a turbulent situation.
I don't think we should have ever gotten here. I wish that the company had come to us with meaningful offers months ago.
The union says it's fighting for job protection, scheduling improvements for better work-life balance, and higher compensation, saying it makes 45% less than pilots at some American airlines.
WestJet currently has a retention and attraction problem with its pilots. We want management to come to the table with meaningful offers to conclude a contract that will help this company grow.
This aviation management professor says the Airline Pilots Association has recently negotiated a number of new contracts in the U.S., including a 34% increase in pay raises for Delta, which has set a precedent. He says it's a tough decision for WestJet, who may have to start refunding flights or spend more money paying its pilots.
What's the trade-off between losing this revenue that we're getting
and paying 45% more for our pilots. The 45% is going to be from here on in. It's going to be forever.
In a statement to CBC tonight, WestJet says it's committed to listening to its pilots' concerns and that its focus remains at the bargaining table, saying we believe with a commitment from both parties an agreement is achievable. Experts say other Canadian airlines may be in similar situations in the months and year to come.
The other airlines in Canada, very soon, will be up against the same pressure. So, the precedent will be set in terms of how do you negotiate with ALPA, depending on how WestJet handles this one. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this evolves.
The union expects about 700 pilots to protest at 3 airports across the country tomorrow. It says there will be no disruption to service. However, it's a chance to send management a message. Meg Roberts, CBC News, Toronto.
Today is International Bereaved Mother's Day in honor of moms and families grieving the loss of a child at birth or during pregnancy. A Toronto support group gathered in Leamington today saying these spaces are critical for families and more support is needed.
For families like mine who don't have a place to go, we didn't have a funeral for our babies and we don't have anywhere physically to go. Events like this is where families can come together in a really kind of relaxed environment where there's no expectation to talk about your loss.
The group is calling for a national bereavement strategy across Canada and for more people to have access to groups like this. We spoke to one family who has received support from Sunnybrook's Pregnancy and Infant Loss Network.
I didn't even know it was a day prior to our loss. It was really nice to have a day, I guess, for our scenario and share that with others who have experienced a loss as well. It meant a lot to us to hear their stories and feel like, oh, we're not alone out there, because you always feel like it's just happening to you and everybody else is having pregnancies and births and stuff.
The couple says access to peer groups and therapists with expertise in recovering from loss can help with the healing journey. Sophia's here. We wore our Maple Leafs blue.
I know,
but it didn't help.
Great minds think alike. I will stay on the bandwagon, though.
Yes, me too.
I believe.
Hey. Do you? It's a
always
pressure.
a bandwagon.
Pressure.
I've been a Leafs fan for every playoffs run.
That's right. There you go.
A little bit of blue rain to talk about as well in our current conditions right around the GTA. A little bit of a disturbance came through today. Didn't put too much of a dampen on the marathon this morning, but it's heading off stateside and a really pleasant forecast I've got coming up for you for this long range ahead. Let's start with Monday and Tuesday. How does sunshine and maybe the possibility of 20 degrees sound? A little bit of high level cloud is really all we have to talk about for the next 24 to 36 hours. And if you think it's been a while since we've been around the 20s in the GTA, you'd be right. 20s and sunshine, last day we had that was over 2 weeks ago, April the 21st. We could get that on Monday, and we'll see close to that for the next few days. In fact, the last half of April has been really cool and dreary. I'll tell you how long this nice ridge coming up lasts and if we can expect any rain or sunshine for Mother's Day in the long range, Shannon.
Ooh, okay, we'll talk to you shortly.
Sounds good.
More service reductions kicking into effect today that could impact your Monday morning commute. The TTC is reducing services on Line 1 and at least one streetcar route and some bus routes. The Transit Commission says the cuts will improve reliability along busy corridors, add seasonal service to key city attractions, better align capacity with ridership demand, and accommodate construction across the city. But the cuts will result in increased wait times on Line 1 every day of the week. You can head to the TTC's website for a full list of service changes and routes that are impacted. Getting around Toronto seems increasingly more frustrating. Not surprisingly, traffic and construction took center stage this week in the race for the top job at City Hall. Tomorrow marks 1 week since several blocks of Queen Street were closed. Now, officials have said that work will go on for about 4 years. We spoke earlier with Municipal Affairs reporter Sean Jeffords about how this is all playing out in the mayor's race.
Well, Shannon, I think it's had a pretty immediate impact. On Monday, of course, the barriers and the construction equipment went up on Queen Street for the Ontario line. And, you know, what's interesting is candidates are not saying, let's stop. They clearly want this project to continue, but they're all really trying to figure out how to introduce plans to mitigate the impact, try to lessen it for drivers, for people taking transit, for cyclists, and there are some very contrasting views about what they will or won't be willing to do when it comes to addressing these issues,
So Sean, tell us, how are candidates saying they'll tackle the issue of getting around?
The most interesting takes, it seems right now, are actually is the discussion going on, I would say, the right side of the spectrum. So you've got Mark Saunders coming out on Monday saying he would change the priority transit lanes that are on King. He thinks that, all the work going on in Queen will mean that we've got to divert cars and traffic to King, but you've got to open that up. Right now, it's a priority transit lane. The vehicle traffic on the street is very heavily restricted. So he's saying we've got to address that right away. And Brad Bradford is taking a really different approach. He's hedging more to the center, I would say, and he's saying, let's double down on transit. Let's make King a priority transit corridor, and let's really limit vehicle traffic on that street. So you've got two very different visions from two candidates who occupy a lot of the same space on the political spectrum. It's going to be really interesting to see how that debate takes shape over the course of the next few months.
Yeah, for sure. So talks about transportation and construction aren't going away. What will you be watching for this coming week?
I think we're going to see a lot more focus on transit specifically. We had Mitzi Hunter this week introduce her own signature transit plan to build new lines up near Shepherd. But I also think you're going to see a lot of discussion about Scarborough. I mean, Scarborough Transit is a factor in every election. It emerged this week again with the discussion of what the city should do with the SRT, the old light rail line that is going to have to be retired close to the end of this year, and a debate about the future of bus lanes out there and how perhaps they should be on that dedicated link or railway rail grounds that the SRT occupies right now, and how to fund it. So I think going forward, these are going to be key issues, and they're things that I'm going to be watching closely.
Thanks, Sean. He's reporting from City Hall. In Alberta, 29,000 people are now out of their homes. More are being told, get ready to move at a moment's notice. It's all because of the wildfires burning. Help from Ontario was expected to arrive today. Julia Wong spent the day with people who had no choice but to abandon everything they own.
The brute force of Mother Nature on full display, destroying houses, sheds, and anything else in its way. The ground still smoldering in some places as wildfires rip through Alberta.
We do want to give everybody hope that we're going to be moving this in a direction where we can get people back into their homes as quickly as possible. But fundamentally, we do have to wait for the wildfires to get under control.
That should be enough wool to make an Afghan, eh?
Like Barbara Jantz, who left Fox Creek about 250 kilometers northwest of Edmonton, even though she didn't want to. Neighbors convinced her to leave. They're all staying at a campground, and the situation has made Jantz emotional.
Everything. You're making me cry. I want rain bad.
Dorothy Dennis and her husband fled Fox Creek Friday before the mandatory evacuation order came down, after they saw a red glow from their deck.
You don't know if you're going to go back home to your home. Fort McMurray came into my mind, what they went through in 2016. It's very scary. It's so surreal.
The anxiety and stress of the situation is obvious.
Every time the alert comes on, we're on the alert. You want to look, and yet you're scared to look because they might say it's your town that's actually on fire.
The fires are happening in the middle of a provincial election. Both Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and NDP leader Rachel Notley visited the Edmonton Evacuation Centre Sunday.
Regardless of what's going on with the election, is going to have your back, and we're going to do everything we can to support you and others in your communities.
The Premier's office says she will be speaking with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau Monday and will be asking for federal assistance.
We know that potentially there's some military supports that they can offer. We're going to see if they have any firefighting expertise. We'll see if they have any engineering support.
Temperatures have been a bit cooler the last few days, and we saw rain in some parts of the province. Wildfire officials say that helped a bit. Now, we can expect this type of weather for a couple of days, but there are concerns. Temperatures are expected to rise later this week, and because these fires have burned so hot and so deep, hotspots could reignite. Julia Wong, CBC News, Shining Bank, Alberta.
14,000 people laced up for the 46th annual Toronto Marathon. Several road closures were put in place to help everything run smoothly. Even before the big day, the annual fundraising event brought in $7.5 million. Proceeds go to the Princess Margaret Cancer Society.
I kind of lost a lot of people closer to the end. It's always the challenging part.
A gold medal for winning the Toronto 5K. Yeah, I can't believe I just, I won it. And second, I broke the under 20 Canadian record, so I'm really happy with that.
Yes, Dad's running the half marathon, and so we're here to support him.
People from 55 countries took part running 5K to a full marathon. Special shout out to some of our CBC colleagues who took part, including Patrick, who filmed some of this footage. A bit of rain probably made it feel refreshing out there running a full marathon.
So. A little cool down. The start of the race was okay. A few glimmers of sunshine as well for all those very fit and accomplished people. Good work.
Right.
It's nice that we're still holding on to the double digits into the overnight period. In fact, Shannon, these temperatures that we're experiencing right now into the overnight period have been what our daytime highs have been like for the past 2 weeks. In fact, as I was saying earlier, the whole second half of April really has been below seasonal, cool, dreary, rainy. You know, you don't need me to tell you that. Even much of May has been following suit, except for that really nice day we had yesterday, which really, folks, I know it felt warm, but it was just at seasonal where we should be this time of year, and it's where we will be for the next few days. This ridge of high pressure is in, letting that warmth filter in, kicking out that blocking pattern far out to sea. How long will it last, though? Well, for the next 3 days anyways, you are seasonal and above, and plenty of sunshine. Let's talk about that for a minute. For the next 4 days, you are averaging about 12 hours of sunshine every day. Doesn't that sound amazing? But look, it trails off into next weekend, which, Shannon, is our big weekend. Mother's Day weekend, maybe some showers, dampening our parades as we have our outdoor brunches. That troughing pattern looks to push back in a little bit, but temperatures will still be seasonal. Enjoy it while you can, because the long range shows a dip down to below seasonal for the second half of May. And before I let you go, I got to let everybody know there will be some high UV indexes, so adequate sun protection will be necessary over the next couple days.
We're back to sunscreen season, which is wonderful.
Sunscreen season, I like that. I'm going to use that.
Okay, thanks, Sophia. We'll see you next weekend.
See you then.
That's our show. Thanks for watching. Before we go, we want to take you back, though, to the Toronto Marathon. Congrats again to everyone who took part. We'll see you next weekend.